Welcome, everybody. This is the Michael Newman Show. Michael Newman back doing a little podcast for you. This is I'm actually doing a recorded version of a show I'm going to start doing live at night. That is the plan. I'm trying to figure out a way to get it done a little bit quicker because it takes so long to put all this stuff together. I have a lot of stuff coming up on the show for you. It's going to be like an hour. That's what it's going to be. At least that's the plan. And I've just got I've actually got benchmarks, right? I've got things to do with little graphics and the whole thing, so that's going to be a whole lot of fun. So let's just get it started.
Progressivism is alive and well.
Jesus was considered a feminist.
What bugs me and a lot of other people is when periods are associated with womanhood.
Can we get your friend? You're fucking a white male!
It's gender equality.
You're a fucking scumbag. In order to paint with our period blood, I have to collect my period blood.
I do not expect everyone in the world to understand my identity.
Oh, damn.
Everyone is valid and worthy of love.
Oh, yeah. Everybody is valid, worthy of love. I'm not sure what that means to be a valid person or an invalid person, or I don't know how that works. Do you know how that works? Anyway, yes, I love you. That's what I want to say. Welcome to the Michael Newman Show. See all the new graphics and things and stuff moving from behind? That is so good. So we're going to break the show down in a couple of different ways. We're going to have top stories. We're going to have some things that are very important that I think you should watch and check out. So we're going to have a section where I found a video from the YouTubes that I think you should check out. Then I'll have all the links for you, but we're going to play that video in its entirety. We're going to bring up a question of the day, and you can get back to me on that. We're going to do a whole bunch of cool stuff like that. So let's get it started. See, look at the graphics. Isn't that awesome? All damn day. That's what it takes for me to put stuff like that together all day. I'm not kidding. Not that I'm an idiot or anything. It's just that I don't do this all that much. So what is the top story? Trust in the news media takes a hit during Trump's presidency. Is it Donald Trump's fault? Well, I don't know. This is a piece from the AP. When truck driver Chris Gromick wants to know what's really going on in Washington, he scans the internet and satellite radio. He no longer flips on TV channels because networks like Fox and MSNBC deliver conflicting accounts tainted by politics, he says. The 47-year-old North Carolina resident answering that question accurately is a cornerstone of any functioning democracy, according to none other than Thomas Jefferson. But a year into Donald Trump's presidency, his fact-bending, media-bashing presidency, Americans are increasingly confused about who can be trusted to tell them reliably what their government and their commander-in-chief is doing. The spin from the AP is, well, it's amazing. They just spin. They spin on a story that is about media's potency, basically. The way they write the story is, in fact, the reason why there's such a problem with people believing the media these days. But there's better examples of what's going on out there. Perfect example of what's happening is a reaction to President Trump and his comments he made the other day. Okay, the story and it's a shithole country. Oh my God, what is he talking about? Well, Josh Dawsey, he's a reporter from the Washington Post, and this is his cute little face. Look at Mr. Dawsey. Oh, by the way, I've got two clips from this guy, one from yesterday and one from today. You'll see the difference. Somebody in the PR firm got to him and said, "Get it, fix it." So this is Mr. Dawsey. I think he does a pretty good job of explaining exactly what the story is, what the controversy is.
There were a number of senators and congressmen who came to the Oval Office for a meeting on DACA. It was a bipartisan meeting. They hoped to present the president with a deal on immigration that gave him some money for his wall, gave him some of the measures he wants, like curbing the visa lottery system.
Okay, curbing the visa lottery system. Keep that in mind.
While extending the DACA provision. In the meeting, the bipartisan group said to the president that they wanted to curb a number of folks in the visa lottery, like the president did, by 50%. But in the 50%, they wanted to make sure those folks were from protected countries, from some African countries, from Haiti. The president grew incensed at this. He said, as you reported, he doesn't want people from shithole countries. In Haiti, he said he didn't want any more people from Haiti. He said make sure they were out of a deal. And he made it clear that he wanted immigrants from places like Norway. And
Okay, so we're talking about this visa lottery system, which is a bad idea, which is, by the way, racist on its face, right? It's a racist on its face type situation. What they're saying is basically the Democrats put this lottery system in place. They're saying you have a shithole country and you're a bunch of shithole people, but we're going to bring you in because you're such a shithole. Maybe you'll be better. That's what it does. Okay, that's what it does. When you weight certain countries over other countries in this lottery system, what you're saying is that where you're from and who you are is a piece of shit. So understand that's what the law is, right? And Donald Trump is simply saying, look, some of these countries aren't the greatest, and the people that are coming from these countries, we would probably be better off if we at least treated it fairly between these groups of people. Right? Why? No one from Norway is getting in the visa lottery system, basically. So why not? More people from Norway? How about one? Would that be helpful? Is anyone from Norway getting in via that program? Probably not. So if you're going to have immigrants from specific countries getting preferred treatment, then we have to look at the countries as a whole. And Haiti isn't a great country as a whole. Now, when we're talking about shithole countries, me personally, I have a very different scale than most people would. I would call the entire EU a shithole country. I would call Canada a shithole country because I care about rights and I care about freedoms and individual liberty. And it doesn't seem like any of these countries care about that whatsoever. And the stuff that the Canadians are doing, of course, it's all over the European Union as well, to train kids into being sexual deviants from a very young age, to confuse them, make it so that they never really grow up properly or have relationships with other people, taking another step to destroy the family, starting as young as possible to get this idea of a nuclear family out of these kids' heads. It's a sick thing. So Canada, you're a shithole country. Everybody in Europe, shithole country. All of the Middle East, shithole countries, all of them. So I have no problem saying that because I have a reason why I'm saying that. I'm sure Donald Trump did as well in relation to this story. Now, which I think is a bad idea, people are starting to try to walk this thing back, right? So the president, I guess, is walking it back, and there's some other people commentating and walking it back. CNN's John Brennan reacted with some consternation to reports that GOP lawmakers may be using a particular way to sort of walk this thing back. Oh, wait. Hit the wrong button? Oh, no. Oh, this is Brennan. Oh, sorry. How about we hit this button?
This story, which is either comic or tragic, depending on how you view it, and it all comes down to the difference between a hole and a house. Josh Dawsey is the Washington Post reporter who broke this story on Friday, really on Thursday night, that the president said these things in the Oval Office. There are new developments that you're reporting, Josh, about how White House officials are now explaining this. I will leave it to you to say these words so I don't have to. What are you hearing?
Several people said to me over the weekend that there's a semantic difference. Some people in the meeting heard the phrase shit house instead of shit hole, and are using that to kind of disparage or to knock back some of the reporting. Apparently the senators heard that per White House officials that I have spoken to, and are using that discrepancy to say the president did not make those comments. To be clear, I've called my sources repeatedly over the weekend. I know colleagues at other outlets have too, and no one in the White House is denying it other than the president that he made a similar remark to what we reported. There was just a difference in hearing on how we ended that phrase.
So, Josh, I'm tempted to say that Republican Senators Perdue and Cotton are going on TV denying the comments were said, and they're hanging it on the difference between a blank hole and a blank house. One might reasonably ask, are you effing kidding me?
Oh, look at me. Are you effing kidding me? Crazy. That guy, man, he's on the edge. That is edgy. Look at him being edgy. I will agree that the semantics of was it a hole or a house really is kind of a stupid argument. But then again,
it depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yeah.
Are you effing kidding me?
Right, which is the reaction that most people had back in the day. I gotta play that again.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yeah.
Are you effing kidding me?
No, we're not kidding you.
Are you effing kidding me?
Of course not. Anyway, so semantics can be important, and you have defended semantics, or at least your group there at CNN have defended semantics on many occasions. So let's not go too far on that deal. Senator Tom Cotton. Oh, would he be? If he got into medical marijuana, would he be living in high cotton? Would it be high? And I don't know. I was thinking country music. I don't know why. Some are claiming, including Mr. Cotton, that the words weren't even said. Tom Cotton appeared on Face the Nation. This is what Senator Cotton had to say.
Help me understand the strong sentiment about why people who come from African countries and Haiti should not be allowed in, and the strong sentiment for why people from Norway should be allowed in. What's the policy sentiment the president is supporting there, if not to put people in baskets?
John, the point is that country of origin quotas are arbitrary, and they treat people based on where they're from, not who they are. Today, for instance, over 300,000 Indians are waiting to immigrate to this country. They can't do so because we have arbitrary caps on the countries from which people come. If you change our immigration system to a skills-based system that respects and treats people for who they are, as individuals as opposed to residents of a certain country or relatives of certain people in the United States, it's a system that is more in keeping with American values.
So actually it's a situation here where the quota system is the bad deal. Actually, quota system, if you think about it, is what? It's affirmative action. So it's something that the Democrats really, really like. They believe in solely almost in identity politics. So you're not going to change their mind on this. But that is the point. Affirmative action sucks. It's not a good idea. Why? Because people who aren't necessarily the best are getting jobs over people who are more qualified. That's just the way it is. It's that those sorts of policies affect work, affect public service jobs, firefighters, police officers, those sorts of things. And they also affect people's admission into different colleges. And it's not necessarily Whitey gets in before everybody else. There is a bigger step or hurdle that you have to climb over if you are a high-achieving Asian American, because I guess Democrats don't like Asians. I guess that's the reason why that sort of affirmative. Maybe the Democrats did this in the first place. They're the ones that interned the Japanese during World War II. Maybe they wish that the Japs never got out of the internment camp. Maybe they didn't get to enact their final solution against the Japanese. I don't know if that's what they want to do, but certainly their policies lead one to, walk down that aisle a little bit. And actually, the system itself, as it groups people by the countries that they come in from, a system that Democrats are pushing and put in place, they come up with a system that's, in effect, racist, right? because they're calculating people by where they come from. This is who you are, and because of who you are, because of the color of your skin, because of your nationality, we're going to rank you based on how we like you or based on how you can help us. I don't know if that's a great idea.
In this notion of American values, which is what is at the heart of this debate, because what people need to know is that their president isn't judging people based on the color of their skin, but based on those skills that you talked about. So can you say then that the president, in your conversations in this specific one, was not grouping people based on the countries they came from, that was sentiment was nowhere in anything he said, not the words, but the sentiment from him, that was absent from his mind or anything he said?
John, what Senator Durbin and Senator Graham proposed is to expand our country of origin and quota-based system. The president reacted strongly against that, as he should, and I do as well, because we want to get away from a country of origin system that treats people as Nigerians or Norwegians and treats them as individuals, as doctors and scientists and computer programmers and so forth.
I understand your sentiment. You're quite clear on that. But the president's sentiment, you're saying in all of these meetings, there was never an instance in which he did what you're saying,
well, John,
where he grouped people
John,
in that fashion.
in his tweets, in his interviews, in his public statements, just Tuesday, when we had the large meeting in the cabinet room, he repeatedly insists that we need to move to a skills-based system.
But you were in the room where it happens. So you're saying in that room you didn't hear any of this sort of lumping everybody together. Is that what you're saying?
I did not hear derogatory comments
about
individuals or persons, no.
Okay, well, the way he stated it at the end sounded very lawyerly, but I understood what he was talking about. And in fact, as the Democrats go after Trump on this, saying that, well, you're saying that everybody from this country is X, Y, and Z, and that makes you a racist. Well, in fact, if you keep the quotas in place, you are saying the very same thing, right? You're saying these people are X, Y, and Z, ergo they need to come here, ergo they're less than, right? We want to help the less than. The idea of we want to help the less than is irrelevant to the question. The idea that you are classifying these people as being from a piece of shit country, ergo wanting to continue said law, is very hypocritical. Just wanted to point that out because that's the type of guy I am. There's a piece here from Wall Street Journal that I thought was interesting. It says, shortly before the death in February of 2016, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia spoke favorably of Donald Trump's presidential run, saying, quote, Scalia thought it was most refreshing to have a candidate who was pretty much unfiltered and utterly frank. I think he's right. I absolutely think he's right. And, you've got a lot of people that attack Trump for using the Twitter thing. You get a lot of people attacking Trump for what he says. But the frankness and upforwardness of what he says is not only good, it's not only refreshing, but it does something else. It does something very important, because when you hit the left and you just speak truth to the left, unfiltered, they go nuts because you're not following you're being heretical. You're being a heretic. You're not following their views of what is moral and immoral. You have not bought in to their ideology. And if you don't buy into their ideology, well, they hate you. They absolutely despise you and everyone that is like you. And by being frank, and by sounding quote-unquote unpresidential and being off his rocker and crazy, Donald Trump has done a great job of exposing the left for truly what they are. All right, let's talk about the news today. Some fun stuff that was in the news. Hawaii. Now, poor guy, I got to tell you, this is something, I got to fix my camera here. I got to play with this for a second, but this is something I would have done. Not on purpose, right? I mean, if one button's next to the other button, I would certainly be the guy that hits the wrong button. That's all I can say. I'm not going to hit the right button every time. I probably won't even hit the right button once. So I can't really attack the guy for this, but a Hawaiian public employee who plunged the state into a state of chaos by accidentally sending out an incoming missile emergency alert on Saturday has been reassigned. missile alert. You screwed up on a missile alert. That's kind of a big one. I mean, if you're going to screw up on an alert, not the global thermonuclear war alert. That's the one you want to at least try to get right. You know what I'm saying? So he's been reassigned. Maybe it's to the Amber Alert system. I don't know. I mean, it probably wouldn't be a good idea either. I mean, you could get confused with the silver alert, and you'll be looking for a 60-year-old with a walker and a colostomy bag driving a 72 Cadillac. Probably not a good idea. The an unnamed emergency department worker will not be fired because he made a honest mistake, according to Hawaii Emergency Management Agency spokesperson. Part of the problem was it was too easy for anyone to make such a big mistake. Well, shouldn't you have thought about that before? You know, could you go through it, for like a week and maybe do some, game this thing out to see how the system works, to see if there's any holes in any cracks. Is it like a sieve? Can bad information get through there? The agency has already put in place new safeguards to prevent such a misfire from happening again. Plus, they've instituted a cancel button that will immediately send out corrective alerts if a erroneous warning is issued again. So that came out, and people still aren't happy about it. In fact, Hawaiians are so mad over the bogus missile alert sent to their phones for half an hour, by the way. I mean, it took a half hour to fix this thing. That they're calling in death threats to the agency. We'll kill you. The threats came in through the agency's public phone line. So a bunch of people angry enough to pick up the phone and say, I want to kill you, which is a pretty big deal. Now, the agency is saying, we understand that members of our community are angry about Saturday's false alarm, and we're looking at these messages as individuals blowing off steam. While we take any threat against our personnel seriously, we are doing our best not to escalate the situation. Yeah. Because if you went to arrest one person, I think you'd have an entire group of people coming after you. How about, it's cold outside. It's been a long time since we had ice here where I live. I mean, just ice on the ground, and there's a bunch of ice on the ground right now. I mean, it looks white, it looks like snow, but you go out on it and it's ice. So it's kind of treacherous out here and cold, and it hasn't really warmed up for the past several days or so. But there's another way to get frozen. That's get frozen to the core. The first humans frozen after death could be brought back to life in as little as 10 years, an expert has revealed. The incredible announcement comes from Dennis Kowalski, president of the U.S.-based Cryonics Institute, an organization spearheading the human freezing process. Now, this is the deal where when you die, they immediately freeze your body in hopes that whatever killed you can be repaired into the future. And when that specific illness is repairable, then they thaw you back up and fix your body, and you're along on your way. And of course, the idea has been that, you get frozen cryogenic stasis, and it may be several hundred, maybe 1,000 years before they wake you up. And he's saying, no, it could happen. It could happen any day. Any day now. They could be bringing these people. We're going to get the Duke back. Didn't they freeze his head? I think they froze the Duke. John Wayne? Wouldn't that? Oh, God. Think about that. You imagine the Duke coming back today. Holy, talk about a shithole. He'd be like, put me back in the freezer. I'll come back when the millennials are dead. So apparently he's saying the demand for the service is skyrocketed, and what a great way to drive even more demand by creating sort of a false story. I don't think we're going to be bringing people back from the dead in 10 years. I mean, if we were going to bring people back from the dead in 10 years, we would have to have said technology today, because it's going to take 10 years before it can get to the FDA. That's the way it is. Yeah, California. It's not funny. It's not nice. It is true, though. Guess which state, this, by the way, is from PJ Media, has the highest poverty rates in the country? Mississippi? New Mexico? West Virginia? No, California, where nearly 1 out of 5 residents are poor. That's according to the Census Bureau Supplemental Poverty Measure, which factors in the cost of housing, food, utilities, and clothing, and which includes non-cash government assistance as a form of income. So with all the handouts and giveaways, people are poor out in California, the most poverty-stricken state in the nation. It's also one of, if not the richest state in the nation. Isn't that amazing? That this very altruistic state has all the poor people in it. You would think in realizing this fact that people might want to change their policies. They might want to recognize, after trillions of dollars spent on the war on poverty, that you cannot buy people out of poverty. You can only incentivize them into not working. You can only incentivize them into living off of the state. And that's simply unsustainable. Our rights are also seemingly unsustainable. A group of 5 Washington state Christian street preachers who received prior approval of their public evangelism efforts were nevertheless charged criminally under the guise of violating a noise ordinance. Well, they won dismissal of their court appearances on First Amendment basis. The street preachers stood on a public sidewalk at the edge of a high school parking lot, holding signs and speaking to students as they left the school after class. A school resource officer of the police department there, the Washougal Police Department, confronted the street preachers, saying that they were breaking the city noise ordinance and telling them that the school did not welcome their protesting. One of the criminally charged preachers, who was not named, reportedly spent many years under the iron grip of former Soviet Union. He held a sign, had a Bible, was reading Bible verses, handed out gospel tracts to students, and told them that Jesus loves you. The aggressive action from the school and the police reminded him of similar harassment that he received by the KGB in response to his preaching in Russia. The group was successfully represented by Kevin Snyder of the Pacific Justice Institute. All charges were dropped after Snyder explained to the prosecuting attorney in detail the unconstitutionality of the city ordinance. Okay, well, that's good. Hey, it's good. Hey, whoa! What is the sanction against the school and the police and the government in general? What is the sanction? That's my question. Okay, it all went away. Oh, it's a win. No, it's not a win. It's not a win until we can get to a scenario by which this doesn't happen again. You understand that if you don't pay your taxes, bad things happen to you. I'm trying to figure out a way to get out of those bad things currently. You understand that when you harm someone else intentionally, bad things happen to you. Criminal sanction. When you drive too fast, there is a criminal sanction. Everything that a person can do that society does not want them to do includes a criminal sanction, so to give a person a moment of pause before they decide to commit such an act. That's what we do, except for when it's a government official or agents of the government who are violating the most sacred laws of the land. Then nothing happens. Zero. Nada. Why isn't this resource officer in jail? Why not? Look, unless it becomes painful to remove rights from the people, those rights will continue to be infringed. Until there is a real sanction. And I'm not talking about money here. Money's not going to do it. You know, we're going to charge you. Look at billions of dollars you could use. This officer doesn't care about billions of dollars. The school doesn't care about billions of dollars. They don't care about any of that. In fact, charging these people is in fact, you know, it's something that the taxpayers are going to have to pay back. So the taxpayers in and of themselves are charging themselves. They're putting a sanction against themselves. The government doesn't care. It's not going to end until we start throwing people in jail and throwing away the key. Saying, look, we cannot, as a people, we cannot allow any agent of the government to infringe on our rights in any way. And even if you attempt to, we are going to remove you, and we are going to remove from you your freedom. We are going to take everything you have because you, as a agent of the government, decided it was incumbent upon you to separate me from my freedom. Separate me from my constitutionally protected rights. Until we get to that point, I don't think things are going to get any better. Now, this news section, I don't usually bring politics into it, but because these two stories sort of work well back to back, and I just find it interesting. We've got a new senator. Well, we haven't got a new senator. We got someone new who wants to be a senator. Chelsea Manning. Yeah. The transgendered Army private who was convicted of crimes under the Espionage Act for leaking hundreds of thousands of classified documents to WikiLeaks, filed paperwork to run for U.S. Senate. That happened last week. And released a campaign ad.
I'm Chelsea Manning, and I approve this message.
We live in trying times. Times of fear. Of suppression. Of hate. We don't need more or better leaders. We need someone willing to fight. We need to stop asking them to give us our rights. They won't support us. They won't compromise. We need to stop expecting that our systems will somehow fix themselves. We need to actually take the reins of power from them. We need to challenge them at every level. We need to fix this. We don't need them anymore. We can do better. You're damn right we got this.
Damn right. Yes, you go, Chelsea. You go, girl. Damn right. Okay. Chelsea Manning had, I'm not really sure where she's coming from. I haven't gone through the website, her campaign website. I don't even know if she's got one yet. I would imagine you would have a campaign website if you've already produced a commercial. But let's just go through the copy there that she read, because the thing about the left in general, and I think there's this growing group of people that they're leftist, but they're understanding where the suppression is coming from, and there's people on the right, or the libertarians, understanding where the oppression is coming from and the suppression is coming from. And they're starting to sound a lot alike. Now, at the end of the day, once those two groups align themselves, they're going to find that their values are very, very different on certain issues. But just let's go through the copy here a little bit. We live in trying times, times of fear, of suppression, and of hate. There's nothing about that statement in and of itself that I can disagree with. We live in very trying times. The stuff that's happening around the world, both politically and the possibility of nuclear war, terrorism, economies, very trying times. We live in times of fear and of hate, especially if you're not on the left. If you're not on the left, then you should be fearful because they hate you. And their hate is so strong that they come up with entire ways of thinking. They come up with entire political philosophies that make it okay for them to do violent things to you. You know, Antifa, anybody. We live in times of suppression because of hate against right-wing speech, against the speech of freedom. Now, is that what she's talking about there? I doubt it very seriously, but it's something that I would agree with. We don't need more or better leaders. We need someone who will fight. Okay. Isn't that a contradiction a little bit? We don't need more or better leaders, so we don't need leaders. We need someone that will fight. Would that be a leader that would fight, or, huh? So that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Probably should have got a reread on the copy. We need to stop asking them to give us our rights. Yeah, now I would imagine, I don't want to read into anything here. I would imagine her rights are social justice rights, which aren't really rights altogether. But this is true because real rights are prohibitions against government. They're limits to what government can do. And if we have our rights, that makes government less powerful. And that's not going to happen without radical action. Government is not just going to give up their power. So between somebody like me and Manning here, the important question is, what are rights? What are rights? If we could come together on what a right is, and that's a very long discussion, I would imagine, then I would think that we could figure something out together. Don't you? All right. We're going to move on. We're going to do the spotlight here. I've got something in the wrong place, but that's all right. In the spotlight, we're doing Mr. Stéphane Molyneux. He's got a piece here talking about teachers are taking a lot of time off. And I certainly think it's something you need to check out. This is Stéphane Molyneux.
When I was, I think, around 11 or so, I bought my first computer and learned how to program in Beginner's Applied Symbolic Instruction Code Basic, which no one over 12 is supposed to use, but I ended up using for quite, turned into Visual Basic, ASP.NET, anyway. So when I got this computer, I used to get up early and I wrote screensavers, I wrote paint programs, I wrote adventure stories, I wrote top-down adventure Dungeons and Dragons style games. I just loved it. And there were times when I would forge my mom's signature. I can confess now, after all these years, 40 years, I would forge my mom's signature so I could stay home and work on computer programming. Now I ended up being a software entrepreneur. So it turns out I was actually getting my real education at home and not showing up to school. And it was great. It was like, I have very, very fond memories of that. Turns out I'm not alone in skipping school. Almost 30% of public school teachers are chronically skipping classes, according to a study that recently came out from the Thomas B. Fordham Institute, an education policy nonprofit think tank. So they found that over 28% of public school educators miss 11 or more school days each year. Public school teachers are 3 times more likely than their charter school counterparts to take more than 10 days a year off school for personal or health-related reasons. The average teacher takes 8 days off per year. This is more than twice the 3.5 days missed by the average employee across industries nationwide. Now, the union says, well, you know, if you're a teacher, you're around a bunch of kids, kids get ill, you're going to get ill, but teachers employed by unionized charter schools were 2 times as likely as their peers to miss more than 10 days of school a year, the report revealed. Listen, I've done call-in shows occasionally with like raging headaches, and that's because I love what I do. I think it's important for the world, and a man's got to eat. So we all know that there's times when you just can't go to work or to school, and there's times when you can, and then there's those times in the middle. So it's this tipping point that really matters. So David Griffith, the author of the study, said, when in doubt, the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. And the simplest explanation for the teacher chronic absenteeism gap between charter and traditional public schools is that the latter are usually subject to collective bargaining agreements that are extremely generous when it comes to the amount of sick and personal leave that teachers are guaranteed. So Hawaiian teachers get 18 paid sick leave days out of their 180-day school year. Boy, that's like 10% of your job. You can just stay home. Nearly 4/5 of Hawaiian teachers take advantage of at least 10 of those days. Now, this is fairly important. So Griffith, the author, says there's a very direct link between teacher attendance and student achievement. So if teachers are missing more than 2 weeks of school, which is how teacher chronic absenteeism is defined, then students are losing about 2 weeks of education, and that's incredibly damaging to their long-term prospects. So, yeah, that's important. I mean, I think we all knew that when the substitute teacher showed up that it was going to be a gimme day. It was going to be a doodles and spitballs kind of day. It was going to be a day, fundamentally, of me working on my endless Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. And this is just another example of how collective bargaining, government, schools, and so on are there for the convenience of the teachers. They're not there for the education or edification of the children. You know, the big problem with education, someone's going to have to address this at some point. I've certainly done my part. At some point, someone's going to have to address the terrible family environments that these kids are experiencing. Someone's going to have to start confronting these parents. And what we do, of course, is we have social structures, particularly the welfare state and so on, that promote terrible family lives. You know, we have divorce-friendly courts. We have, pay women to leave their families, which is sort of like paying you to quit a job you don't like and then expecting you to stay on. So we end up in these situations where these families get wrecked and destroyed, these single mom households, and this is all very, very bad for concentration, for children doing well in school, for having time to prepare for tests. And, single moms, I mean, if they're on welfare, they just get lazy and inert, total Jabba the Hutt style. Or if they're working, then they just don't really have much time to help their kids with their homework or keep up. I mean, I remember taking a note home from school to my mom. She had to sign for some school trip, and she really had no clue what grade I was even in. Because, back when she was working, she was busy and all. So we've got these social institutions that create these terrible, horrible family environments. And then what happens is the kids do badly, and part of it's their own choice, and part of it is their environment. But nobody, of course, has any incentive at the moment to deal with volatile, obstructionist, aggressive parents who might make your life difficult if you confront their bad parenting. And so what happens is the teachers detach and want to stay home, and the parents get off scot-free. The kids don't want to show up, and nothing really fundamentally gets solved. And it's all of this Band-Aid on a sucking chest wound of social decay that keeps occurring in these kinds of situations. And we fix it. We will fix it one day. But what we'll have to do is we'll have to really rediscover our love for our children and accept nothing but the best for them. And until then, well, things are just going to keep getting worse, and fewer and fewer people are going to end up showing up.
Well, let's put it this way, and I've said it before, that public schools or free school has no value. Free things have no value. If there's nothing invested, then you don't care. And that's the same for the students as it is for the parents. Parents at this point, the value in school is to not have to take care of their kid for 8 hours a day while they're at work or doing whatever the hell else they're doing. It's free daycare. That's what the public school system is. And in fact, this is the perfect example of how government socialism doesn't work. It doesn't work. Hey, we got free school. That's great. Now we want free healthcare and free this, that, and free everything else. Well, in this instance, education is now only for the rich, because the rich can afford to pay the taxes and then on top of it, send their kids to a school that actually does a good job. Education is for the rich now because free schools offer no education. Healthcare is, in my opinion, actually an example of fascism and how that system doesn't work. As, hey, look, healthcare, you got hospitals, it's all private industry. Look at all that. Look at all this private industry. But it's all completely controlled by the government. The government decides what drugs you can and cannot have. And with Obamacare, they decide who and who does not get health care. Oh, stories that go on and on and on and on. They just won't stop. Global warming is another one of those stories, but we're only going to mention global warming as it is the backdrop for leftism in this piece. It's from the Daily Caller. And I'll just read part of it for you to give you the gist of where this is going. This Martin Luther King Day, the NAACP wants man-made global warming to be seen as a civil rights issue, arguing that King's vision of a society free of racial injustice can't be achieved without addressing warming. I don't think King's version was of racial justice. They're trying to change Dr. Martin Luther King to somebody who would have been a social justice warrior today. He wasn't, but we'll just move past that. We see climate change as a civil rights issue. Jacqueline Peterson, head of the NAACP Environment and Climate Justice Program, said in an online radio spot for the Yale Center for Environmental Connection. Environmental activists have been increasingly framing global warming as a matter of environmental justice since minority and low-income populations are disproportionately affected by global warming, Patterson told Yale Online's Radio Climate Connections. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, number one, global warming is the coup du jour for freedom. Global warming is the vessel. It is the main leftist cause that so many people are being indoctrinated into and are buying into, that's going to the end of individual freedom and the end of all liberty on the planet. Actually, the end of progress, to tell you the truth. But in this instance, I want you to understand, my African-American friends out there, your color no longer matters. It really never did, in fact, when it comes to politics. It's all about your politics individually. How you think, and if what you think is the right thing to think. If you do not fall into lockstep with the progressive worldview, then you are an enemy. And as an enemy, you can't even identify with the group to which you share genetic code. It doesn't matter if you're black. It doesn't matter if you're LGBTQ, PXV, ampersand, whatever it is now, doesn't matter. Whatever group you identify with doesn't matter. Whatever minority that you are a part of doesn't matter, because you will be cast asunder if your political musings do not exactly line up with the left. That's why the NAACP is doing this. The NAACP is not a black advocacy organization. They are a leftist organization. So they will hold those values paramount first above all other things. All right. Question of the day. Well, the question is it time to outlaw unions? Union membership has been dwindling. Seems like many Americans, people are fighting against having unions in their state. There's a piece here from The Week. It's called 28-Hour Work Week, written by Jeff Spross. Came out today, and he's selling unions basically with free stuff. Germany already has a 35-hour work week. Now, the country's most powerful union, IG Metall, is demanding its 3.9 million workers in the electrical and metalworking industries be allowed to work just a 28-hour week for 2 years. The union staged several walkouts to make its point and is gearing up for a nationwide strike if its demands aren't met. Americans should take note. The standard work week in the States is 40 hours. The average American clocked 1,780 hours on the job in 2016, which makes us something of an anomaly. We don't just put in considerably more work than the Germans, who average 1,360 hours per worker in 2016. We also put in more hours than the French, the British, the Canadians, the Dutch, and others. More than that, annual hours per worker steadily fell in those countries over the last half century. America saw its hours fall until about the 1980s, when the trend flatlined. Our hours have been stagnant ever since. An economy with high productivity is supposed to deliver better standards of living, either in the form of higher incomes or more leisure hours. Most Western countries have seen a mix of both. Americans, to a large degree, have gotten neither. The distribution of working hours in America is so incredibly uneven across demographics. Perverse as it may seem, long hours have become a mark of privilege in the U.S. The well-educated, highly paid white workers and male workers all log in the most. Why? Because in an economy where increased overall productivity doesn't result in increased wages or leisure time, working obsessively long hours to rake in more money is the only surefire way to increase your standard of living. This brings us back to the length of the work week. Boosting the overall demand for goods and services is one way to get more people into the workforce. Unfortunately, America has not done a good job of this since 1980, and Europe has probably done an even shoddier job since 2008. The other option is to spread the available work out among more people. One way to do this is by shortening the work week. A shorter work week would force employers to hire more people to meet the same amount of market demand. It would also force employers to spread out hours more evenly between men and women, white workers and workers of color, and between the more and less educated. But there's a catch. If everyone works fewer hours, but hourly wages don't rise, people could see a big loss of income. So a shorter work week would need to be accompanied by hikes in the minimum wage. Unfortunately, not only does America still have a 40-hour work week, it's spottily enforced and vast numbers of workers fall outside the requirements for overtime pay. The Obama administration made a few attempts to apply overtime laws more broadly, but those efforts have been stymied so far by the Republicans in the Trump White House. On top of that, we rely disproportionately on employers rather than the government to provide workers with health care and retirement benefits. Even if a business's employees do qualify for overtime, it's often cheaper to just pay those existing employees more than it is to take on the additional overhead costs of yet another worker. Another option for driving work up into more widely shared bit-sized chunks is increasing paid vacation and family leave. IG Metall's call for temporary 28-hour workweek arguably serves this function. The idea is that all of the union workers could take their 2 years of short work weeks whenever they wanted to, presumably coinciding with life events like birth of a child or a sick family member. Indeed, if workers take the shorter work week under those circumstances, the union wants employees to boost hourly pay to top off any lost income. Democrats in Washington have proposed national legislation that would distribute paid benefits for certain amounts of family leave, but it has little chance of passage at this moment. So yes, a shorter work week could do Americans a whole lot of good, but U.S. employees may not have the leverage to demand such a change. More than anything, leverage is what German workers have got going for them, and what allows them to demand a 28-hour work week with such conviction. Germany's economy is booming, so labor is scarce, and employers have fought over employees. But just as important, unions are massively powerful there. Official union membership rates aren't that high, though still way higher than in the Americas. But unions' bargaining agreements mean they negotiate for terms for about 2/3 of the country's workforce. German law also requires that half of all corporate boards must be representatives of the company's workers. These days, the 35-hour work week probably seems otherworldly to most Americans, much less a 28-hour one. But Germans are a good example of how it can be done. We need a lot of political organizing and policy changes to get there. So there you go. The union pitch, my friends. The entire piece actually assumes that unions are a good thing. And I believe that that is a point that is certainly in contention these days. There's a reason why there's not a whole lot of unions out there, or a whole lot of union leaders. Look, if unions were that great, people would join unions. Even in Germany, unions aren't that great, so people aren't joining the unions. So, should we outlaw unions? Now, people would say, oh, no, people have the right to... Well, wait a second. People have had the right, or have not had the right, to not join unions for quite a while. That is changing. It's different in many states. And, you know, I don't believe it was a fair situation to force people into unions into the beginning, whether it be as a private organization getting beat up if you didn't join, Teamsters, or if it's, you know, government giving these groups that call themselves union some sort of bargaining chip that normal people wouldn't have. That's just not right. So if we've got laws enforcing unions, why not correct the problem, at least on the short term, with laws that get rid of these problematic organizations? I don't know. Let's go the opposite way of the way we've been going. Look, the way we've been going ain't working. It hasn't worked for quite a while. And as soon as we do any little thing to walk back the greater control of the government, as soon as we just walk, all we have to do is walk it back just a little bit. Then we get this massive surge of good things happening. Imagine if we just eliminated government control altogether. And understand, union control is government control. So if we've got laws enforcing unions, why not correct the problem with laws outlawing them, at least for a period of time? Unions have destroyed our manufacturing and education sectors completely. Haven't they caused enough damage? It's time to get rid of them. Unions, especially of late, have been found to steal from the workers. You've heard of those stories here of late. Little embezzlement going on. And most importantly, and I find this interesting in Germany, that such a small group of people is representing such a large group of people. I would not want unions representing me in anything. Union leadership uses the money that they get from you, the worker, to advocate for policy that union members don't necessarily want. That's a lot of the reason why people are getting away from unions these days, is they're tired of what unions are fighting for. Because it's certainly not American. So that's the question of the day. You can send me an email. You can send me a tweet. Should we outlaw unions? Just want to hear what you think. Stuff you need to know. This is news stories that mean nothing, but I thought they were entertaining. One of the biggest diamonds in history has been found. A big old rock. Look at that sucker. 910 carats. Of course, that's before it's cut. But it's about the size of 2 golf balls. It's a D color type. Is it 2A or 11A? Anyway, diamond, which means it has very few or no nitrogen atoms, and is one of the most expensive stones or stone types in the world. The diamond is the 5th largest ever found. Gem, which is the name of the company that found the thing, did not say how it's going to sell the diamond or what it could be worth. Its value will be determined by the size and quality of the polished stones that can be cut from it. Let's see. Lucira Diamond Corp sold a 1,109 carat diamond for $53 million last year, but got a record $63 million for a smaller 813 carat stone it found at the same time in 2015. So I don't know what the whole diamond, how you do the cutting and the deal with the thing and the whatever it is. It's a big old rock, and you know what? I want a rapper to buy it. I think it should be. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't it be fun if they, or like an Oscar or something? I don't know. Like, you know, you have the what's the Stanley Cup and those sorts of things. You get passed from winner to winner each year. This is what they should have. It should be a huge, one singular cut rock, big old sucker, and then that is the thing that you win for that year. I don't know why that would be fun. I just want a rapper to buy it. Yeah. It's actually the bottom of a chalice. So you've got the chalice, it's crystal cup made of gold, and then the stem is this giant diamond, and it goes into the bottom, and then you can drink Cristal out of it. I think that would be awesome. I would become a rapper at that point. You'd have to have the rapping Super Bowl. I don't know how you do that. That could be fun for the giant $1 million. Good times. I like that. I don't usually like to do these stories during this period of time, but I'll just throw this out here. I guess it's sort of an entertainment story, so we can do this. From Huffington Post, the author behind a new book telling the story of a queer, magical black teen who goes on an adventure to save the world hopes that her work will encourage young people who don't often see themselves represented in literature. Jazz Joiners. Jupiter Leaves, the otherworldly tale of a lonesome black girl, offers an untold story of black queerness in the world of young adult books. It provides joiners worlds, a universally relatable character for anyone who has ever felt inadequate or unworthy of being uplifted. So this is another one of those social justice warrior characters that have been unsuccessful, haven't been very popular as of late, especially within the superhero science fiction genre. And I was thinking about that. Why is that? There's a lot of social justice warriors out there, and you know, some of this, they can't all just not like science fiction or anything like that. And you would think if there's a genre that includes someone that they can identify with, then that would be a good thing. I think there's a more fundamental reason why these characters don't necessarily sell a lot. And it's because identity politics is not important. People didn't watch or fall in love with Superman because he was a white guy, or that he was super powerful and blah, 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 blah. They fall in love with these characters because they do the right thing. I don't think people identify because of who the character is. It's because of the values that they're upholding. Because they're doing things right. And everybody recognizes the difference between right and wrong. And you can count on this person to do the right. Once you establish that, then that's what you identify with. The actions are what you identify with, not the person. It's not the identity of the character that people want to fall in love with. It's not their skin color. We're deeper than that as a people. It's the actions that character takes that are of value. A couple of quick ones here. I don't usually do football stories, but there's some videos involved here, and I like videos of people going crazy. Two sides of the last gasp of victory. The Minnesota Vikings left delirious by Stephon Diggs winning 61-yard touchdown as the Saints fans lick their wounds, and one destroys a television. Of course, the Vikings, last gasp 29-24 win over New Orleans. And, well, some people go pretty crazy about the whole thing. Oh, that's the wrong one. Jesus. I hope they're in a house, not an apartment, because if some big, fat, flabby guy flops down on the second floor like that, number one, he could probably go through, and number two, it's just really going to piss me off if I'm the guy below. But I don't watch any of the sports. I could give a flying you-know-what about the Vikings win, but some people, hey, if you love sports, you love sports, and that's your thing. Mo power to you. Some people, I think they'll make some bad decisions when their team loses.
Stop! Kyle!
Yeah. I don't think it was it's TV's fault there, Kyle. And I wonder if it was her TV. I bought that. I'll kill you. Now, if somebody did that at my house, just ripped the TV off the wall, I can't believe they lost. I'm going to shoot them. Yeah, look, you screw with my TV and your life is forfeit at that point. I've got Netflix and porn to watch, so get the hell out of my way. Now, one quick video because I thought it was fantastic, because you always got to have a little doggy video. And these aren't little dogs. These are big dogs. They really like to play. Here you go. I got a couple of German Shepherds, and Dad's trying to throw out the Christmas tree, and both of them got a hold of the bottom of the tree. No, Daddy's playing with the tree. And he falls over. We don't care. What's wrong with Daddy? Oh, now let's grab the tree. Arr, arr. I wonder how much he's playing this up. Good God. Those are two pretty big dogs, too. There you go. Now, what'd you do with it? What'd you bring it back? What'd you do it, Daddy? Are you going to go get it? We'll go over there and get it. Oh, dogs. All right, friends. That is it for the Michael Newman Show. Michael Newman Show is over. I do have some new stuff going on the website, but I haven't posted it all yet, so you can still go to michaelnewmanproductions.com, and that will have all the details you need for the show there. Check that out. Plus, most of the links and stuff are in the description below on this video, so that's a cool deal. And what else? You can tweet me, Newmaniac1. And like I said, we're going to start doing some live shows where you can call in and do all that and do it on a daily basis. It'll be so much fun. Otherwise, hope you liked it. Have a great evening. We will see you tomorrow.